So today we're just going to be talking about scales and the relevancy that it has in the DCG course. So we'll just start off by stating the learning intentions. So after this we're going to know how the basic principles of scales, how to use a plane scale, which is this one here, and how to use a diagonal scale, which is this one here. So first off, we're just going to talk about the two different types of scales. So as I said, there's a plane scale and diagonal scale. The difference between the two is the plane scale is a lot more basic than the diagonal scale. If you were doing just a very quick, if you want to get a very quick scale of an object, you would use the plane scale, because you can see that it only goes to 0.1 of decimal place, whereas the diagonal scale is a lot more precise. It goes to 2 decimal points, so you could get, say, 2.78 of an object. And yeah, you'd use plane scales for more basic, rough versions of an object, whereas for a diagonal scale you'd use this for a lot more precise, say for a watch or something where you're going down to very fine details. So we'll just talk about enlarging ratios and reducing ratios now. So an enlarging ratio is something where you have an object, say, that's small and you want to make it bigger, or like say a watch, as I said before, a watch where you have a watch, say, that's this size, and you want to zoom in on it so you can clearly see all the small parts of the watch. And then we've a reducing ratio, which is where you have a big object and you want to make it smaller, say like a house, because you obviously can't draw a house to scale on a piece of paper. So we have here an example of the reducing ratio. So I just drew a very crude picture of a house. So say this house, not necessarily 1 to 5, but say it's 5, 1 to 5. So if the scale is 1 to 5, it means it's 5 times smaller than the actual object itself. So this number 1 represents the actual size of the object, and if the number's on the right hand side, it means it's 5 times smaller than the actual scale. And then you can see here that this one is 10 times smaller than the actual scale. So the bigger the number on the right, the smaller the scale is going to be. And then this obviously the opposite if you want to get an enlarging ratio. So if you have, I just did it out here, so this number 1 represents the actual size of the object, and then this 10 means it's going to be 10 times bigger than the actual object. So it's just important to remember that which side the number the 1 is going to be on. So if the number 1 is on the right hand side, it means it's going to be enlarging ratio, because this is going to be 10 times bigger. But if the number 1's on the left hand side, it's going to be a reducing ratio. So like this is going to be 5 times smaller. So we're just going to how to draw, or how to go about drawing the two different scales. So we just have a plane scale here. It's very easy and quick to draw. I just broke it up into 4 parts. So you have 0 to 3 meters, and then on the left hand side is going to be where you're going to get kind of more finer details, where you're going to go to 0.1 of a decimal place, or around 0.1 of a decimal place. So I just have 2 examples here. So 2.5 meters, you're going to start off at this number 2 here, and from here to this 0 here is going to be 2 meters, and then from here on is going to be where you're going to get your finer detail. So you want to get 2.5, and you can see I have it labeled here, which is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. So from here to here is 2.5 meters, and then it's the same here, 2.7 meters. So it's a bit more tricky then for the diagonal scale. So I have, obviously it's a bigger box because you're going to be going to finer detail. So, but it's kind of still the same principle. You have 0 to 3, and then another box on the left hand side. So I did 100 millimeters wide, or 100 millimeters high, and it generally doesn't really matter how wide it is, as long as these boxes are all the same size. So I broke it up into 10, because it's 100 millimeters high. I broke it into 10 then, so you have 9, 8, 7, 6, so on. and then I broke this up as well. So it's very important how you break up this box here. So you need to start off at 9 here. Because you're going to be working from this side back, you're going to have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on, and then you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So say we want to get a line that's 2.77 meters long. We're going to start off at 2 meters, and we're going to start off this line 7. So I want to get 2.77, which is relatively easy. So I have this number 7 here. I'm going to bring it up and join to this number 7 here, and then I'm going to bring it back to that number 2 here. So that's going to be 2.77 meters long. So that's basically, that kind of covers the basics of scales. So we're after learning the different types of scales, the different types of ratios, so even enlarging ratios and reducing ratios, where we could use these scales, say for drawing watches or drawing houses, and then learned how to draw out the plane scale and diagonal scale and how to use them.